Let me see, get this set up. All right. Good morning and welcome. Thanks for joining me here this morning. Wow, it's really hot in the office. My name is Michael, and this is a live English chat. Thanks for joining me, and good morning. It is Friday. Today is Friday. What is today? Today is Friday, September 7th. Wow. I can't believe that September has started and the summer is kind of over, right? So, yeah, wow. Time flies. This year has really flown by, especially the summer has flown by here. It's amazing. So yeah, it is September. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning in New York City, and I'm not sure what time it is where you are, where you're watching, but yeah, thanks for joining me this morning. If you have an English question, I'd be happy to try and answer that this morning. Otherwise, I'm going to answer some of the questions that people left for me last time, and also people have commented on the YouTube channel. They had some questions, which are pretty good questions, actually, that I wanted to answer today. So let's get to it. The first thing, hang on one second. Summer is over here in Kazakhstan. It's 1903. All right, 1903. What time is 1903? You know, when we talk about time, and you can see by the clock behind me, it's about 9:02. Americans use the AM PM time system. So, for example, for me, in the afternoon, I would say it's 3 p.m. But in a lot of countries, you guys say it's 15 o'clock. I'm not sure exactly what you say, but a lot of people would use that kind of system. But in America, we use the AM PM system, which is kind of interesting if you come here, because, for example, when you look at a train schedule, right, and you look at the train is departing at, it says that the departure time is 3 p.m. It doesn't say 15 o'clock. So if you happen to be, that's handy information, I think, if you happen to be working in an international company and you're working with Americans and you want to schedule a meeting, the best way to clearly indicate the time is to use AM and PM, not the 24-hour clock. You know, hey, let's meet tomorrow at 1900 or 19 o'clock. 19, what is 19? So I'm used to it now, but before I got used to it, I used to go, okay, let's see, at 12, and then 13 is 1 o'clock, and 14 is 2 o'clock, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Oh, 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. So that's kind of a cultural point about America and how we think of the time. So we use AM, PM, but in Soviet countries, they used, right, the 24-hour clock. A lot of countries use the 24-hour clock that I've noticed, but yeah, so we use the 12-hour clock here in America, and AM and PM. All right, so enough about that. So the other day on the YouTube channel, by the way, the YouTube channel now has over 9,500 subscribers, almost 10,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much for that. And on Instagram, last week we hit 20,000 followers. So hey, thank you so much for studying here. So somebody asked me on YouTube, what's the difference between I think about it and I think of it? And that's a great question. So let's tackle that. Think of and think about. So in most cases, think about and think of have the same exact use and meaning. So I think about you all the time. I think of you all the time. It means in my mind, there's a little picture of you. I think about you all the time. So think about. I think about my future. I think of my future. So in my it's in my mind, right? It's like a little picture in my mind. And so in that case, think of and think about have the exact same meaning. So, but think of has another usage and another meaning. And that is think of also means to invent or create something in your mind. So I thought of a new recipe for pasta sauce. I thought of a new recipe. In other words, I created that recipe. I imagined it in my mind and it's new. So you can think of something, it means to create something. So in a business meeting, maybe your boss would say, we need to think of some new marketing ideas or something like that. In other words, we need to create something new. We need to think of it. So think of then has two meanings, right? So I think about you all the time. I think of you all the time. You're in my mind. So in that case, it's the same. But think of has one more meaning. And the other meaning is to invent or create. So here's a question for you to practice. Have you thought of anything recently? Have you thought of a new recipe? Have you thought of a new way to study English? Have you thought of a new plan for your future life? If so, why don't you guys, why don't you leave a comment? You can put that in the comment section, and I'll read that if those come up. So that's the difference between think of and think about. So if you've just joined, think of and think about both mean the same thing. Put an image in your mind. I think about coffee all the time. I think of coffee all the time. Then think of also means to create or invent. So that's how those two words work. So that was a great question. Thank you for asking that question. And the next question is, all right, at the beginning or in the beginning? At the beginning, in the beginning, at the beginning, in the beginning. What's the difference? Well, the difference is that the usage is different. The meaning is the same, but how we use out, how we use at the beginning and how we use in the beginning is different. So usually, like we use in the beginning followed by a comma, and then we tell the rest of the story. So let me give you an example. I took a trip to Central Park and I stayed in Central Park the whole day. In the beginning, I was just walking around, but after a few minutes, I started taking lots of photos. So let me try that again. I was in Central Park and in the beginning, I was there for a couple of hours. In the beginning, I was just walking around. But after a while, I started taking lots of photos. So we use in the beginning plus a comma, and then we continue the story. But the phrase at the beginning, we usually use at the beginning of something. At the beginning of my Central Park trip, I was just walking around. At the beginning of this class, I talked about think. I actually, at the beginning of this this chat, I talked about time. So at the beginning of something, at the beginning of the movie, they got on the ship. Or at the beginning of the book, the detective found the dead body. Dun dun dun. So at the beginning of something, and that's the basic difference between in the beginning and at the beginning. The meaning is the same. It talks about the beginning part of something. And quite often in conversation, you know, and I've talked about this before with at and in, and you know, we tend to use at the beginning or in the beginning interchangeably when we're not being particular about uh, or specific about what we're saying. So in the beginning of the book, the detective found the body. At the beginning of the book, the detective found the body. Both of those are acceptable and correct. But in the beginning is usually followed by the rest of the story, and at the beginning is usually followed by of. So at the beginning of this live chat, I talked about time. And in the beginning of this live chat, I talked about time. That's the same. But I could also do this. In the beginning, I was talking about time. At the beginning of this live chat. So you see the difference there? At the beginning needs of something. At the beginning of the book, at the beginning of the movie, at the beginning of this live chat. But in the beginning doesn't. You can have in the beginning plus a comma. So that's how those two are used. All right, so I think of crochet a new dress. Okay, Banu, so I think of, and if you're gonna use a verb, you should use an ing, you should use a gerund. I think of drinking more coffee. I think of crocheting a new dress, but that's a great example. Okay, here's another example sentence on YouTube this morning. I think of we should learn English as a language, not as a subject. All right, so MD Alim, I think of uh, should be followed by a noun, okay, not a subject and a verb. So I think we should learn English as a language, not a subject, works better in that case. And I agree with you. For a lot of people, English is a subject, just a school subject. And I've talked about this on some podcasts before. But English is a language. It's a way of communicating with people. And yes, it's a school subject, and yes, you have to study for the test, but it's a language. It's a way to communicate, and that's a great idea. Okay, so Roberto says he's in Mexico and he's watching my live video while he's working. Roberto, I hope your boss doesn't mind that. Dr. CJ Victor, what's the difference between confused and mistaken? If you're confused, it's in your mind. So you go to a new country for the first time, and you're in the train station and you're not sure which train to take, or you're not sure which exit of the station to take. You're confused. I don't know what to do. What should I do? I'm confused. But if you say I'm mistaken, it means mistaken means you have actually done some action, and that action was not correct. So for example, if you're in a new country, if you come to New York and you're in the train station and there are many exits and you're not sure which one to take, you could say I'm confused. But if you take one of the exits and it's the wrong exit, then you would say I'm mistaken. So that's the difference between mistaken and confused. All right, so that's that. And then, hang on one second. Okay, so a couple of things. As I mentioned last week, I'm going to do a live YouTube. There I am. I'm going to do a live YouTube and Instagram chat every Friday at this time in September. So tune in and check that out. And I also wanted to let you know that next Tuesday, this is it. My new book for English teachers is coming out on Tuesday, September 11th. And this is a great book for English teachers. So if you are an English teacher and you're looking for some classroom activities using American English, then I highly recommend this book for you. And if you are not an English teacher, but you know an English teacher, why don't you show them this video and they can check that out, coming on Tuesday at Amazon. So that, my friends, is all that I wanted to talk about today. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. And if you have any other questions about English that you would like me to talk about in the next live show, then please leave them in the comments here, or you can send me a message at myhappyenglish.com, myhappyenglish.com. And you can also find over 2,000 English lessons there for free, videos, podcasts, and all other kinds of lessons. So check it out. Sunny, thank you. Lynn, thank you. Nonika, thank you. Rohan, Hassan, Banu, everybody else, Roberto, thank you for coming today. Roberto, I hope you don't get in trouble with your boss. Hey, thanks for joining me for this live. I will see you next Friday at the same time. I'll have another YouTube not live video coming out probably over the weekend. And yeah, have a great day, have a great weekend, and see you guys next time. Bye, guys. All right, YouTube. There you are. All right, YouTube. Have a great weekend. Thank you.